Man, you've really, your accent's gone, or your pronunciation's...
Oh, I've never had an accent.
No?
Yeah, so that's kind of the weird part of me.
During the post-Backlash 2025 press conference, Triple H dropped a bombshell that left the wrestling world in shock. What was expected to be a typical corporate briefing turned into a historic moment when Triple H candidly addressed Jon Moxley's departure from WWE. In an uncharacteristic and raw confession, the WWE Chief Content Officer admitted that the company had failed Moxley during his time there, revealing the real reasons behind his exit in 2019. With brutal honesty, Triple H acknowledged the mistakes made and offered a surprising admission that changed everything. If Moxley walked through WWE's doors again, he would be welcomed back with open arms. The implications were staggering. Could the door to Moxley's WWE return finally be open? Enter Triple H, the new creative force. WWE's Chief Content Officer, Triple H, walked into the room, his presence commanding immediate attention. The press conference was set to begin, and despite the palpable energy from Backlash, the room had an odd, almost ominous feel to it. There were a few polite claps from the press corps, a few scattered nods of acknowledgement, but the curiosity in the room was thick. This wasn't the usual post-event talk. There was something different about this moment. The room grew silent as he stepped up to the mic. A few awkward seconds passed as he stared at the journalists before him, weighing his words. Then, without any preamble, he dropped a bombshell that would rock the wrestling world to its core. The unthinkable revelation. The name hung in the air like a thunderclap. Jon Moxley, once Dean Ambrose, had been a mainstay of WWE for years before his unexpected and highly publicized departure in 2019. His exit from WWE had been shrouded in mystery, with numerous rumors and speculations swirling around the reasons behind it. Some speculated it was due to a lack of creative freedom. Others suggested burnout or dissatisfaction with the direction of his character. But despite his massive success in WWE, the company never publicly addressed the circumstances surrounding Moxley's departure. The entire topic had been avoided like the plague. Until now. As Triple H uttered Moxley's name, the room was filled with an immediate sense of tension. This was a subject no one had openly discussed for years. For WWE, it was as if the past had suddenly come alive in the present, and no one knew where the conversation would go from here. The truth about Moxley's departure. Triple H went on to explain that Moxley's departure wasn't due to a single moment of discontent or one glaring incident. No, it had been a slow, drawn-out frustration, a frustration that stemmed from years of creative limitations, missed opportunities, and a system that simply refused to change. "We handed him scripts when he wanted freedom," Triple H said, his voice beginning to rise with emotion. "We gave him 3 lines when he had 3 pages of fire in his soul. We gave him props when all he wanted was a microphone and a raw crowd to speak to. And worst of all, we ignored him when he told us who he really was." Moxley wasn't just looking for shock value, Triple H clarified, his eyes narrowing. He wanted stories that meant something, stories that hurt. He wanted wrestling to feel dangerous again, and we weren't ready for that. We were scared. We were scared to let him go there. So we locked the doors on one of the most passionate voices we ever had. The unheard pitches. Triple H's admission continued to dig deeper into the past, unearthing painful truths that had been buried for years. He revealed that Moxley had pitched ideas that were so innovative, so forward-thinking, that they would have revolutionized the way WWE approached storytelling. One such pitch was a dark, twisted reunion of The Shield. A storyline that would have not only redefined faction dynamics, but also blurred the lines between reality and fiction. But when Moxley presented it, WWE executives balked at the idea. It wasn't that the idea was bad. It was that WWE was afraid to take the risks necessary to execute it. Triple H paused for a moment to let the weight of the revelations settle in. He let the silence hang in the air before he dropped the next bombshell. "We turned it down, not because it was bad, but because we were scared. Scared to change." At that moment, it became clear. This wasn't just about Moxley anymore. This was about WWE itself, about a company that had become stagnant, afraid to evolve, and unwilling to embrace the future. Moxley had seen the need for change long before anyone else in the company did. He had outgrown WWE, not because he wasn't good enough, but because WWE wasn't willing to take the creative risks that he needed to flourish. The shocking declaration. And then, Triple H delivered the line that would dominate headlines and spark a firestorm of speculation. "If Jon Moxley walked into my office tomorrow," he said slowly, his voice deliberate and steady, "I would hand him the keys. Because the WWE he left no longer exists." The room erupted. The journalists and influencers in attendance could hardly process what they had just heard. Was this an invitation for Moxley to return? Was it a declaration of openness? Triple H didn't elaborate, leaving everyone hanging on the implications of his words. But one thing was clear. The door was now open, in a way that no one had ever imagined. For years, fans had debated whether Moxley would ever return to WWE, whether the relationship had been irreparably damaged by his departure. Many believed that the bridge had been burned for good. But now, Triple H, one of the men responsible for running WWE, was saying that it didn't have to be that way. This wasn't just an olive branch. This was an open invitation to someone who had once been a cornerstone of the company. Rewriting history. Moxley as a trailblazer. Triple H wasn't just defending Moxley's past choices. He was honoring them. He acknowledged that Moxley had been a trailblazer, someone who had seen the cracks in the system long before anyone else. He wasn't a disgruntled talent, Triple H said, his voice softening. He was a prophet in a place that wasn't ready to hear the message. He outgrew us, that's the truth. With WWE under new leadership, with a new creative direction, the door for Moxley to return had been cracked open. But this wasn't about nostalgia. It wasn't about trying to resurrect the past. It was about evolution. It was about acknowledging that Moxley had helped push WWE to the brink of change, even if the company had been too resistant to recognize it at the time. The firestorm of speculation. As Triple H's words spread across the internet, fans and pundits alike began to speculate on what this could mean. Would Moxley actually return to WWE? Could the chaotic, unpredictable force that had driven his rise in AEW bring the same energy back to the place where it all began? Fans of Moxley, who had followed his rise in AEW, now found themselves questioning what a WWE under Triple H's leadership would look like. Could it be a WWE that allowed Moxley to bring the chaos and realism that he had fought for all along? But the question that lingered in everyone's mind was the one that couldn't be answered yet. Would Jon Moxley step back into a WWE ring? The next move was his to make, but one thing was certain. Triple H had ignited something. Whether Moxley ever returned or not, he had already left his mark on WWE, and Triple H's declaration had shifted the entire conversation. A new chapter for WWE. In the end, Triple H's admission didn't just rewrite the story of Jon Moxley's departure. It rewrote WWE's history as well. Backlash 2025 will be remembered for its great matches and shocking moments, but more than anything, it will be remembered for the night the truth came out. The night that Jon Moxley's legacy was rewritten. Not with PR spin or corporate rhetoric, but with raw honesty. Whether Moxley returns or not, his impact on WWE had already been acknowledged, and with that acknowledgement, a new chapter in WWE's evolution had begun. As Triple H concluded the press conference, the weight of his words still hanging in the air, one thing was certain. WWE had been forever changed by one man's refusal to play by the old rules. Whether that man would return or continue forging his own path was yet to be seen. But what fans now understood was this. WWE's future would no longer be dictated by the past. Evolution had begun, and Jon Moxley had been one of the catalysts for that change.